1. This is the 8-9 combo, and this is Games of the Week. I'm Brett McKay, and this is Harry Jones. Hello, mate. We're back.
How's it, Brett? Usually we're struggling to find in the Games of the Week. This time, there's really just one game of the week for rugby fans, so it's a little bit easier.
It is. Very much so. Very much so. Don't miss episode 15 of the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast with Melbourne Rebels head coach Kevin Foote. May be the best rugby chat Harry and I have had in quite a while, and you should absolutely add it to your playlist wherever you get your podcasts. So please do like, follow, subscribe, rate and review and share. And it's great to get into our end of the week show once again. But this week, as our YouTube viewers would already have noticed, we have company, and we welcome for a special edition of Games of the Week, renowned pundit and commentator, former Ireland hooker and proud Leinster man, Bernard Jackman. G'day, mate. Welcome back.
Hey, guys. Great to be back. Thanks for having me.
No problems at all. We will get straight into this weekend's Games of the Week, and it is pretty easy to start because this weekend is all about the European finals and particularly the Champions Cup. Both games we played at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, and it occurred to me, actually, why is that stadium free? Tottenham Hotspur played Newcastle United in Melbourne on Wednesday night down here. So, the stadium was free. So the Champions Cup will be played there between Leinster and Toulouse on Saturday afternoon. This has been, and we've been sort of wondering about this for a while, Harry, isn't it? This is the final that I think everyone wanted for this competition this year.
Yeah, sometimes the fates conspire where you have a true number one versus a true number two, and you're not even sure who's the one and who's the two. For Northern Hemisphere club supremacy, let me point out for our Kiwi fans, because there's a claim by the Blues.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt at all. Players from, I think it's 10 countries playing in this. Both sides are fit for purpose. Both sides have very few weaknesses. So who better than Bernard Jackman to talk us through what could be the keys? Just as a little brief, one of the great books on rugby is Blue Blood by Birch. And Bernard Jackman takes us through a moment in the Heineken Cup final where Jamie Heaslip drops a ball cold. So Leicester's playing the Tigers, Leicester, and it gives the Leicester Tigers, that scrum team, a scrum in the Leinster half. And Johnny Sexton, who's the young fly-off, is freaking out, losing his rag. And Birch says that he saw Jamie, the guy who had dropped the ball, tell Johnny, relax. And I always think in these massive build-up hype things where Manny Miafu is calling Antoine Dupont a Martian, and everyone just loses their mind. It's going to be the team that knows how to execute on the day.
Yeah, no doubt. Bernard, aside from your proud Leinster roots, I'm tipping this is a game that you were looking forward to.
Oh, look, I think this is going to be special. Toulouse obviously going for their 6th Champions Cup, Leinster for their 5th. Been since 2018 since Leinster have won it. And you know what? Over the last 5-6 years, they've probably been the most consistent side in Europe up until knockout stages. They've got beaten in the last 2 finals, semi-finals the year before, beaten the final before that. So they badly want this. You could even say they need this. But as Harry said, it's hard to know who's favourites. I mean, some bookies have Toulouse 1-point favourites, some bookies have Leinster 1-point favourites, and I think Leinster would have been favourites if they had been a bit more convincing against Northampton. Obviously, they ended up kind of holding on at the end despite having been dominant for the first 50 minutes, and that probably surprised people. Obviously, it was a home game, 82,000 people in Croke Park, young Northampton team, and Leinster just didn't really convince. Now, having said that, when I look back at Toulouse's semi-final and quarter-final, even though they racked up big scores, they were quite flawed as well against Exeter and Harlequins, and got themselves into probably more difficulty at times than they would have expected to. So, but then, so neither team are really totally comfortable in how they're cracking on this. Obviously, Leinster lost this weekend to Ulster with a second string team. Toulouse were able to send a second string team to Montpellier and win, which will be great for morale this week. But when you look at the quality and the number of internationals on show, potentially, mainly French, but obviously some foreign, some non-French like Blair Kinghorn and Richie Arnold, etc., Roy Arnold, etc. So like it's just
key, yeah,
exactly. Peter Key's class, and a key man for them, it's just going to be insane.
Yeah.
Like £1 billion stadium, and sell out. It's going to be phenomenal, and I think if this final had been played for the last couple of years, I would have said, "Oh, it's Leinster's attack against Toulouse's attack," but it's really probably Toulouse's attack against Leinster's defence. And the question is if Nina Barr and that South African influence defence can actually stop what for me is the most exciting attacking team in club rugby in the world.
Yeah, I wanted to jump into that, Birch. The attack of Toulouse is so good at identifying space. The Nina Arbor defense tried to deny you space by getting in the space. It shoots up not for the man, but for the space in between the men. And so a friend of our pod, and I think a friend of yours, Catherine Kavanagh, a noted Leinsterologist, she posed this question. I think it's fair enough. Was how could just 20 weeks of Nina Arborism, really alter a 7-year coherence of Leinster defense?
It's a good question.
But I do note in favor of Jacques, some players that I don't view as yes men on Leinster have said it does. They've said he has influenced us. The shape is more narrow, sure. We're looking to jolt people and sign our name. That's the Jacques Niebuhr thing, to sign your name on the tackle. He was hired for times like this, right? And this is actually, after all the maybe a high risk reward and all that stuff, this is the game that Jacques Nienaber was brought to Leinster for.
Yeah, it's interesting. So the guy who replaced Stuart Lancaster was very much loved by Leinster players and Leinster fans, and he brought a lot of really good moments and experiences to Leinster. But unfortunately, they couldn't get over the line, in the big finals, and there was defensive frailties. And it was interesting. He was a senior coach, so he was actually coaching attack and defense, which is quite unusual in the modern game with so many special coaches. But it was interesting when Leo Cullen moved to replace him. Stuart got a great opportunity to go to Racing in Paris and to be the head coach. Obviously, he was working kind of alongside Leo Cullen in Leinster. He went after a defence coach. He went after Jacques Nienaber. So it's kind of an admission that was the area I think that they wanted to fix. Certainly, there's been a lot more time of training spent on exits, on kicking game, on defence, whereas I think it was very much attack first in previous years. And the players have loved it and responded to it. And they've got joy out of it. I mean, against La Rochelle, it worked, really, really well. But the problem is, I think it actually, this is the issue for Leinster. It's probably going to work better against a team who are based on power and size than a team like Toulouse, who have high levels of power, size, skill, speed, and calmness under pressure, if that makes sense. So that's the challenge. I think it's one thing doing it against Northampton and against La Rochelle, or your run-of-the-mill URC teams. I think they get spooked by that pressure. But everything we see in Toulouse would say if Leinster get it slightly off, if Leinster are slightly late, if Leinster are half a metre too narrow, they have the skill set to beat that rush. And then this is the question that's in my mind. It's probably only going to be the answer is only going to be evident on Saturday. Is the difference with South Africa is the out and out pace of their back three. So if they make a mistake, and they did make mistakes, they often had the pace to get back and recover. Whereas Leinster's wings, like Larmer is a stepper, he's quick, he's a stepper. James Lowe is power and left foot kicking game, fend, popping up on different parts of the field. He's not an out and out speedster. So that's the challenge. If Leinster make a mistake, which even the Box used to, have they the speed to recover against a Toulouse team who have a lot of pace?
Right.
And straight away, Harry, there I'm thinking of, we were talking earlier in the year and we were talking to Laurie Fisher about the Brumbies defence and how we were talking about they're missing a lot of up front tackles, but their scramble was keeping them in games. And they earlier in the year, they were doing the same thing. They were really rushing up, narrow, trying to force teams wide, but it was their back three covering up for them in the end.
You design defensive schemes sometimes for the athletes you have. Lancaster on our pod said this as much. He says South African athletes sometimes can do double plays. So, that's one thing. James Lowe is a battleship. James Lowe is a low center of gravity. James Lowe, does he swivel like a cornerback in the NFL or not? That's what so the rush defense of Nina Birch, every single play, it leaves space open on purpose. It's like, hey, here's the fool's goal. Do you want to get there or not? But you only have a split second to do it. To your point, Toulouse has Dupont, Ntamak, Aki, Ramos, Kinghorn. These are all playmakers. So you have a lot of footballers in the back line. You might even have some forwards who can do that too. Does it come down to in the D versus attack, and we can do the other way around too, Leinster's attack, but on this particular matchup, it's a bit like, the risk reward of Leinster leaving a backfield somewhat open with maybe a sweeper at 9. And then do you think Toulouse can find that space laterally, or is it going to have to be with kicks over the top, grubbers, diagonals? Where do you see that happening?
I think it'll be all of them. I think I've been watching them in the last few weeks in the top 14, and they have been playing more plays where they kick off that second set of hands, which you throw another pass, the wing comes higher, it just opens up that box that you're trying to fit in the backfield a little bit more, and it's been working for them against teams who don't rush as aggressively as Leinster. Now, I think from Leinster's point of view, Hugo Keenan came back last weekend and played against Ulster and got through the game, and he is absolutely crucial, because if you are going to defend that backfield with 1 or 1.5 players, having someone like Hugo Keenan, who's incredibly fit, very quick, and picks up body language really quickly and early, and is already in motion before the ball hits the toe. That can actually save you. That can save you. And if you think about it, if you saw the Ospreys game, Leinster conceded a penalty try from a crossfield kick against Saints. The try they conceded was from a kick over the top where the backfield wasn't protected. Yeah. So there's obvious weaknesses there that we have to hope that Keenan can cover up on.
Yeah.
It puts so much pressure on the sweepers, like you said, the 1.5 sweepers. It does look like sevens influence all over the field here. You got Dupont, who just comes from a 7, so sometimes he runs away from the ruck, runs backward, and keeps the play alive. Aki, I think, was playing 7s back in the day, and then you have Keenan and Jamison Gibson Park. Jamison Gibson Park is so much better than he was 5 years ago, so much better than he was 2 years ago. What's going on there? He's on the up. If he has quick ball, it could be trouble for Toulouse. If you flip it around and say, can Toulouse stop Leinster? Leinster's going to bring the big boys, McCarthy, Conan, Kalen, big carriers on that 1-3-3-1. They hold. They do short passes, and then if you can't stop that, they're just going to roll over you. If they do, then you go at the back. So it's almost like I was going to ask you, who do you think which scrum half has to be more influential on the defensive side? Because we know they're both attacking weapons.
Yeah,
I think Gibson Park has become key for Leinster because again, he moves. He's very quick. He moves very well. He does cover. He's the half a lot of times, so in that backfield. So I think him and Keenan there together, they will cover a lot of that space. So he's crucial. He's probably the second best scrum half in the world at the moment. He's the best full-time scrum half because obviously Dupont has been dipping in and out of 7s. They're very different though. I think Gibson Park. Yeah. Obviously, he's been scoring plenty of tries through support play, but he gives Leinster tempo, and his pass selection is very good. His understanding and ability to scan and understand when it's on to bounce back down the blind side if they've left the body short, and then execute the right pass. Whereas Dupont's a little bit different. Dupont is just this X factor freak who can do individual things as well, like real moments, and sometimes, as you mentioned, like he goes backwards to go forwards. That's so unusual, you know. But and I often see defenders get excited when they see him going backwards and they jump to try and trap him, and then it's a fend or it's a bit of power or a bit of footwork, and he's gone. You know, so that's the challenge. So I look back at games where he's been stopped, and actually the best game I've seen people really get to him is Munster in 2022 in the match that they drew. It was draw after extra time, and then they lost on penalties. So it was quarterfinal in the Champions Cup, sure. And they implemented a plan where they just harassed him non-stop for 80 minutes, and he didn't have any big moments, which is so rare. I mean, even when he's being quiet, he often has a moment that wins the game or that blows you away. In this game, he didn't at all. And they got through the ruck, they counter-rucked and had Toulouse players back, kind of falling back on top of him and just unsettling him. They tackled him late, they held him off the ball, just really took him out. And since then, I haven't seen anyone do it as well. And it'd be really interesting. Leinster this year under Nina Barr, people talk about his line speed, but it's Leinster's ability for the plus one tackler to basically affect and make that ruck like a virus or sick or whatever by counter-rucking and charging and barging and pulling people and just making an absolute mess for the nine, just to take another second out of the play. They've been really good at that, but I think they need to take another level where they actually really follow through and actually counter-ruck, you know, in the right areas of the field, and maybe get the odd turnover or certainly trap him at the back of it. So that's going to be fascinating because, like, it's not easy to do that against Toulouse because you've got guys like Marchand, you know, Miafu, Croix, you know, who are no shrinking violets, and they don't give up space easily, Cyril by, etc. So it's just every time you look at it, you say, oh, Leinster could do this. And then you go, yeah, but could they do it against Toulouse? And likewise, Toulouse do this.
Thing. Yeah.
Toulouse, but can they do it against, you know, this Leinster team who are very athletic, very well drilled? Like you mentioned, their attack. Over the last couple of years, they've played each other a few times, and Leinster have actually ripped Toulouse apart with their attack. You know, because I don't think Toulouse.
It's two semifinals in a row they won, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
Look at last year. Look at there was 2 yellow cards. And Leinster really put the boot down and scored a lot of points. Do you remember they had to move to punt to 10? They went to 6-2 split.
That's right.
Yeah.
They lost to 10 and they put the punt to 10. And in hindsight, it made it easier for Leinster to win. You know, Leinster had a bit of a lead and Toulouse had to chase the game. Whereas I think in hindsight they would have done it differently. They would have left the punt at 10 and made other changes. But look at Toulouse know if they're not on the money, Leinster have the capacity to hurt them. But yeah, I think Leinster's attack hasn't been as fluid as they would have wanted. But this is a game where they're going to concede points. Like they're going to concede. Yeah. A good defensive performance means you probably still concede 18 or 19 points. So you're going to have to score. You know?
Yeah. That's it. I'm just looking back through the results and even going back to, you know, round 3, it sort of looks like both teams have had a pretty comfortable run in. Like I think their closest margin might be 9 or 10 or 11 points. So, you know, this is where they've had a good run through, both teams. So player management over the last couple of weeks is probably going to be the most important, and who's been able to do that best. And you mentioned that they both. And we know Leinster have been sending, you know, second string sides to South Africa, and they did lose a few games. We know Toulouse have been doing similar in France. Is either team got an edge there?
I think Leinster have been able to rest a little bit more. I think like they basically they had a full 2 weeks off by not going to South Africa. They trained, but they didn't have weekends and didn't have matches.
Yes.
And then obviously they were able to rest last weekend. Bar James Ryan and Hugh Keenan, and Jack Conan, who's probably going to be on the bench. But James Ryan and Hugh Keenan just needed game time. And then the rest of the players played are probably bench players. So I think Leinster have been able to manage it a little bit. And that's probably the nature. But look at the side effect of that is Leinster have lost out in a home. They're more than likely going to lose a home URC now because Munster and the Bulls have got a run on them. So if Leinster aren't to win on Saturday, they'll certainly regret being a bit stronger against Ulster, because look, they'll fancy their chance of being able to win the URC, even having been seeded third. But obviously, you lose out in revenue as well by that, and it makes it harder. So there's been a change this year. Leinster last couple of years, it was like they tried to fight a battle on two fronts, pretty much full on. Bar last year, they changed their team for the semi-final against Munster and got caught. That was a week before the Champions Cup final. Whereas this year, the run of games is actually different, because you play Champions Cup final this week.
Yes, and semi-finals next week. Yeah, that's right.
Round URC, and then quarterfinal, semi-final, final. So but it was like they said, well, we don't care about being number one or number two in the URC as much as we have in the past.
Yeah,
about being ready to give ourselves the best shot at beating Toulouse, and then we'll see what we need to do after that, which is definitely a strategy change. And like when you haven't won it since 2018, you have to be able to try things that are a little bit different, because it's just too long. It's too long for a team with the resources they have. It's pretty much the majority of the Irish team. So they should be winning Europe. There's a bit of
Europe. There's a bit of European destiny about it.
Yeah, it's a declaration of It's a declaration of intent. I see. Yes, I mean Toulouse never has any option. Like their fans demand wins. Leinster's the same thing, but Leinster's become almost used to it, and I think maybe their fandom's also said no enough. Three quick questions about the macro of the game.
Make them quick.
Who needs the big start more between these two teams?
I think Leinster, because of the fact. Well, look, I know Leinster have had big starts in the last two finals and lost, but
an even bigger start, maybe.
Like last year they got an unbelievable start, but the problem is you'd have to wonder, is there mental scarring for Leinster? And look at even Ireland. I know they've won Six Nations and a Grand Slam, but like knockout rugby in quarterfinals again. Like a lot of those players, I think they would love to get a win. Obviously, they'd love to get past the quarterfinal of the World Cup, but you just wonder if they got a slow start, have they got? And also, just given how that last 20 minutes against Northampton went, I think Leinster need a fast start more than.
Yeah. Next question is, who can handle a card better? Sometimes you think the scramble defense that's always used to being one short in a way, then they lose another one, it's okay. On the other hand, you think maybe it just stretches you too far. With the high likelihood that someone gets a card for at least 10 minutes on this game. Yeah. Which one do you think can scramble more around?
I think Leinster are fitter than Toulouse. I think Leinster are fitter. Although they say that their training has changed a lot, that it's less aerobic and it's more, 5 phases of real pace and intensity, and then stop or change it up, and then that's probably they don't play multi-phase as much as they used to. Whereas I always felt under Stewart that the more phases Leinster played, the more likely they were going to score. Whereas this version, I think if they don't score within 4 or 5, unless they're underlined, I think they're probably going to look to kick it away and change the point of contact and maybe have a counter-attack opportunity or force a turnover or force a penalty. So I think they've changed a little bit. They don't waste energy building phases as much as they used to. So maybe they're not as fit as I thought they were, but they're not as big and heavy as Toulouse. So
true.
Maybe that mobility, maybe they can cover that a little bit better. But I'd like to hope. I'd like to hope it's not a red card this week. I'd love to see the two best teams winning it. Well, the best team winning it on merit rather than with a little bit of doubt around whether a card had an influence.
For sure, and where those things happen are often on the clean and the jackal. Yeah. So you have Jack Willis, you have Movaka, you have Marchand, and you have Crow that are all can jackal get over the ball. So it's all going to come down to Leinster's cleaners. No, they have to get those guys off the ball for Jameson Gibson Park to have the flow. Yeah,
and Northampton gave them some trouble there. Courtney Laws in particular got some key turnovers. There's a lot more jackal threats in the Toulouse side than the Leinster side. Leinster aren't a big jackal team. Every so often you'll see one, but they're more obsessed with that barge, and not committing too many. So tackler +1, the +1 being very effective, but everybody else on their feet trying to give themselves as much width as possible to come and get you on the next one. So they look to force turnovers through
the counter,
pass errors, or ball being stripped in contact, or a man and ball tackle. Whereas Toulouse are a little bit more passive defensively, but then they'll allow people go after that jackal. And if they win the race, you're not going to shift to Mobaka or Marchand or Crow. That's or Willis. So I'm sure, even though Leinster they didn't play at the weekend as in the starting team, I'm sure there was quite a few intense breakdown sessions where they made sure they're ready.
No doubt. Who wins it, Bernard?
I've gone back and forth on this for the last 2 weeks. I think if Ross Byrne needs a big game. I think, and I back him. I coached him in school. I do think he's mentally tough. He had a great game against La Rochelle, less so against Northampton. He started last year because Johnny was injured. He finished the game against La Rochelle in Marseille on the pitch as 10. He's not a spring chicken, but I think for him this is his opportunity to show that he has the capacity to bring Leinster to where they need to be.
Yeah, fair. We need to touch on, and I'm super conscious of time now, the Challenge Cup Friday night, the Gloucester against Harry's suddenly convenient Sharks, also at the Hotspur. The Challenge Cup final, I think, will be interesting, but it feels like it's going to be all out entertainment, precursor to Saturday.
Yeah, it has. It's always the lesser light, but it's really gunning under the radar. I mean, in Ireland, there's so little talk about it. I think, and this is terrible because in its own right, it's a competition that can, really reignite or launch a club forward. Because obviously it's hard to get silverware with so few trophies on offer. Like Gloucester getting beaten by 80-0 a couple of weeks ago.
90-0.
90-0, sorry, 90, yeah. Like that was, but in fairness, look at they're obviously building towards this. The Sharks have found a bit of form, a little bit, and then they lose to Cardiff for the weekend after a red card.
I was going to say, yeah.
Oh, so they're both teams are unbelievably inconsistent. You would have to fancy Sharks. Like Sharks should be in the last 8 of the Champions Cup on paper. They're going to miss out on European rugby next year unless they win the Challenge Cup. And if they do win the Challenge Cup, that means that the 8th team in the URC doesn't make the Champions Cup next year. So there's all kinds of drama and jeopardy. But I think Sharks, the players they have, World Cup winners, the talent they have, they'll find a performance, I think, on Friday night. And Gloucester I think that 90-0, no matter, even if you're rotating, it doesn't do anyone any good. It's too big a defeat.
They have to win to justify that now.
Yeah, big time.
Everything is geared around that. Yeah. But Bernard, it's been fantastic to catch up with you again. I know it's a big weekend for you. I just hope both games are really, really good. I hope they live up to the European billing that they deserve. So thanks so much for joining us.
Patience and patience and we'll chat soon.
Yeah,
we will.
Cheers.
That was fantastic, Harry, to have Bernard Jackman back to give us a comprehensive wrap at the Champions and the Challenge Cup finals. Very much looking forward to them. I think I've worked out how I can actually watch them both. Maybe not even have to watch them live. So we'll be very much looking forward to that. Very, very quickly on our way out, this is our longest games of the week ever. So Super Rugby Pacific, round 14 this weekend. I think the pick here is the Chiefs Hurricanes in Hamilton on Friday night. That's it's 4th against 2nd. There's implications for top 2. The Chiefs have got the Blues next week as well, which will also have top 2 implications. And I think this is a real danger game for the Hurricanes, I think. So this is going to be the pick there, with a bit of a shout out to the Brumbies and Rebels on Friday night in Canberra, and even the Reds and the Force in Brisbane Saturday night. The Force need to probably win that to keep their top 8 credentials alive. And then even Highlanders Drua on Sunday afternoon in Dunedin. That's 7th against 8, but the Drua need to win that to make sure they're not in danger of being overtaken. So a couple of really interesting games coming up there. Obviously, the URC, the Premiership, the top 14 will be back next weekend. It's the final round of the URC, as Bernard just mentioned there. It's the Premiership semi-finals, and it's the second last round of the top 14. In Japan, it's the second legs of the promotion relegation games. Urasu are up in there. Have got a bit of an aggregate advantage in their game, their series against Kintetsu. Honda and Rico have got advantages as well. I think they'll stay up. So on Saturday at the Chichibu in Tokyo, it's the 3rd-4th playoff between Suntory and Canon. I know I've been saying for a month, Suntory are in a funny sort of position, so Canon will fancy their chances there. And then the final is on Sunday, the Saitama Panasonic Wild Knights against the Toshiba Brave Lupus. So, Robbie Dean's Panasonic Juggernauts against Richie Mo'unga and Toshiba, which will be I think a fascinating contest.
Yeah, in the prestigious Harry Index, Wild Knights have been flirting with this big question of who is the first team from outside the Big Four that would
come in,
win in to the top 20 above someone like La Rochelle or Chiefs and or Brumbies. And I think you look at the team sheet, it is quite amazing, but I still think they got some work to do. But I think this is watchable, and I think I'm going to try to watch it.
Yeah, it should be a great game, and we've been saying for a good while now. Lots of Japanese games on RugbyPass as well makes life easier for us. Round 12 of the Major League Rugby is only 4 games this weekend. So, What is your pick? Very quickly.
I've really been focused on this.
This one I'll put you right on the spot there.
But I'm going to go with NOLA Gold.
Yeah, and Chicago.
I'm thinking with the Hounds, who are made famous by my dog pound dog house against the Gold. Just because, the way it works is it's a semifinals in each conference, so you're trying to get to the 4, and so this is a particularly important game for NOLA Gold and Chicago Hounds. It could make or break.
Sure. Yeah, all makes sense. But there it is, mate. Full time on another edition, a bumper edition of Games of the Week. Our service to rugby fulfilled. Looking forward to these games this weekend. It's a good weekend of rugby, I think.
Totally. And I also want to report that we love our Canadian listeners. We're the most enduring, stubborn popularity in Canada. We still always in the top 5, top 6, top 7. And I wondered, why do they love us so much? Is it my syrupy voice? Is it how much water we drink? But actually, it's because of this. 20% of the world's fresh water is in Canada. They have lakes that are huge. The lake is the biggest freshwater islands. Manitoulin Island is the biggest one of all, that big lake. There's an island in that lake that has a lake on that island that has a island in that lake. So an island in a lake on an island in a lake. And I was thinking, that's kind of like our pod.
It's island inception right there, isn't it?
Great episode. I cannot wait for this game, and hopefully everyone in Australia and New Zealand and South Africa is watching too. I know a lot of people are to see what happens between Jameson Gibson Park, Antoine Dupont. These are great matchup for the 9 in this.
And there'll be plenty of people who go, all right, Champions Cup final, this is worth watching. So I know that's certainly how I've consumed it the last couple of years. So it's going to be a big weekend. But we absolutely want to hear from you. Tell us what we think on the 8-9 Combo on all the socials, and leave your thoughts in the comments section right here on the 8-9 Combo YouTube channel, or tell Harry and I on the socials in our usual places at Harry Baldy Jones and at BMC Sport. Please do like, follow, subscribe on your pod platform of choice, and on YouTube as well, and make sure you get every new episode as soon as it drops. And if you haven't already, do go and find episode 15 of the 8-9 Combo with Melbourne Rebels coach Kevin Foote. It's a ripping conversation, and we loved it. A genuinely great rugby chat. This is Games of the Week from the 8-9 Combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realize you needed, coming from the podcast double act you already had. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones, and we'll be back in your ears with Queensland Reds back rower Harry Wilson next week.
Come play with us.